The Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa says it was disheartened by the acquittal of 6 former and current police officers who were accused of the deaths of 3 mineworkers and police in the days leading up to the Marikana Massacre. Former Northwest Deputy Police Commissioner William Mpembe was among those who were acquitted this week. Nomzamo Zondo, Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa's Executive Director, joins us live now to have this conversation. Nomzamo, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. You say that you are disheartened as an organization by this latest development. Tell us more.
Thank you, Bongi. I think it's very difficult because before the Commission of Inquiry, we learned of how Mr. Socio-Economic died. And of course, in this case, the accused, as you mentioned, former deputy professional Mpembe was charged with the deaths of the 3 miners who died on that day and the 2 policemen, because he was the head of the operation, and because before the court there was evidence that it was his instruction which had started the chaos that eventually resulted in the deaths of these 5 people. But over and above that, the remaining accused are charged for killing Mr. Socio-Economic, who dies about 620 meters away from the first confrontation. And he dies from there clearly as someone who had run away, who would have thought that he's on his way home. And he's killed, at least from the evidence before the commission, by a policeman who was 74 meters away from him, and he's shot once in the head. And the policemen who were charged actually gave evidence in the commission to say they were given an instruction to shoot at Mr. Socio-Economic. Of course, there would be claims that he was endangering them. But the reality is that we have them at the scene. We have cartridges that are found 74 meters away. And we have Mr. Socio-Economic dying, clutching both the 2 weapons that he had as someone who was clearly running away. And so it's not...
Pardon me for coming in there. And I remember at some point, I mean, when we were sitting in the commission, that there was even, of course, Shtumo Baloyi, who's the officer who survived that particular incident, who had spoken about this instruction for tear gas. Looking at how this matter has unfolded, what would have been SERI's desired outcome?
We would have been happy with all the police officers being convicted. But I think we are happy for one thing, and we think that our clients, the families, would confirm this, that they are happy with the way that the NPA prosecuted the case. They're also happy because at the end of the day, the witnesses that came before the High Court were all police officers, were mostly police officers. So in effect, you have the police saying, we know that these 6 gentlemen who worked with us murdered at least this one gentleman, and that at least the head of the operation, who is the former deputy provincial commissioner, was responsible for the case that ensued. And if you remember, Bongi, where there's always been an issue, people always say, we know there's 34 people that died on the 16th, but there's 10 people that died before. And in this case, we are told, at least in relation to 5 people, the police are to blame.
So when then it comes to, of course, this particular issue, he was in conversation with a colleague of mine, Sentlaying, just shortly after that acquittal, raising the concern that he's the only general that has been charged with, officers when it comes to this particular matter. At the same time, when we take a step back to the commission, there were quite a number of senior police officers who came to give evidence in the Farlam Commission of Inquiry, of course, presenting their version of events as far as that entire, operation would have been concerned. What do you make of the statement that he makes, that he is the only general that appears to then be facing the music?
Actually, it's true. But that doesn't mean that he's not guilty, that he was not guilty, that he's not responsible. And SERI and the families and other people who've been calling for justice Marikana have been making calls for the prosecution of those who are responsible for the 16th. And of course, amongst those people, there are generals like him who are of similar seniority. And then here in this case, he's charged alongside Kenneth Mark, who was also, I guess, who came to give evidence before the commission. And the rest of the officers were charged because they are in the group of officers who were at the point where the cartridges were found and themselves have confirmed that they showed this authority.
And it's been 12 years, Nomzamo. Of course, the families, even at the commemoration, still are talking about issues of accountability. But then, of course, you look at the fact that government right now saying that they've disbursed approximately 352 million rand when it comes to some of the claims that have been brought before them. Have all your clients been covered?
In relation to compensation, definitely not. So SERI asked for 36 of the 36 families. I apologize. The math just troubled me for a second. We asked for 36 families, and only 34 of our clients have received partial compensation. And that compensation is merely the police and state saying, will put back the bread that was on your table. Will not compensate you for losing a father, for losing a husband, for losing a friend, for losing a and that's really where the fight is at the moment. But over and above that, the families always made one simple call, that if any of them had shot and killed a policeman, they would have faced the news that they would have been prosecuted. And the fact that 12 years later, there is nothing that can be spoken about in relation to the prosecution of the police who are responsible for the 16th, it is devastating.
As a final question, when it comes to this Marikana story, as a chapter in of course, the history of South Africa, for example, you look at the developments that took place in the preceding days, the security guards that were killed on the 12th of August, and you think about the fact that the 13th of August, lives were lost of mine workers as well as police officers. And then the 16th of August then comes, 34 mine workers are killed, some in the full glare of the public as they watch through cameras, but others are killed behind rocks, which still remains a mystery for many people right now. What will it take for the families to find closure and real closure when it comes to this particular story?
So it's three things. A sincere apology from the state, starting with the president, with the Minister of Police. 2, prosecutions that are backed by the full might of the state, as would happen in any other circumstances. And then 3, that the cost of those deaths does not remain with the families. If those 3 things happen, the families would feel that justice has been done.
All right, Nomzamo, thank you so much for your time this evening. Appreciate it. That was Nomzamo Zondo there, the Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa's Executive Director.